Hi, I'm Charlene Tilton.
When cameras stopped rolling on the set of Dallas, what truly happened between the blonde bombshell Lucy Ewing and the man who wore TV's most famous cowboy hat? What secrets did Charlene Tilton keep locked away about her on-screen uncle, Larry Hagman, for over 40 years? The truth, finally uncovered, reshapes everything we thought we knew about one of television's most iconic pairs. The year was 1978. Jimmy Carter occupied the White House, disco dominated the airwaves, and on April the 2nd, CBS aired the first episode of what would become television's defining primetime soap opera. Dallas burst onto screens with its intoxicating cocktail of wealth, power, and betrayal, centering on the Ewing family and their sprawling South Fork ranch. At the heart of this Texan empire stood J.R. Ewing, calculating, ruthless, and magnetically charismatic, played to perfection by Larry Hagman, a veteran actor previously known for his role in I Dream of Jeannie. Alongside him, a 19-year-old actress with platinum blonde curls and a mischievous smile stepped into the role that would define her career. Charlene Tilton, cast as Lucy Ewing, JR's troublemaking niece, brought youthful energy and unexpected depth to the character described in early press materials as the ranch's resident nymphette. Standing just 4'11", Tilton's diminutive stature contrasted with her outsized presence on screen, earning her the nickname the Poison Dwarf from British tabloids and cementing her status as one of television's first true teen sex symbols. Dallas wasn't just another television show, it was a cultural phenomenon. By 1980, the series commanded an audience of 350 million viewers across 57 countries. The legendary Who Shot J.R. cliffhanger drew 83 million American viewers alone, setting records that would stand for decades and demonstrating the unprecedented grip the series had on the global imagination. CBS paid Hagman an unheard of $100,000 per episode to continue playing television's most beloved villain, making him the highest paid actor in television history at that time. For Tilton, the explosion into fame was particularly disorienting. Born to a struggling single mother who battled mental illness, she had experienced poverty and insecurity throughout her childhood. By 16, she was living independently in Los Angeles, working odd jobs while pursuing acting auditions. Dallas didn't just provide a paycheck, it offered stability, family, and identity to a young woman who had known precious little of any. The professional relationship between Hagman and Tilton quickly developed dimensions beyond their on-screen roles. Though they portrayed uncle and niece, their 23-year age gap positioned Hagman more as a father figure to the young actress navigating her first major role. Behind the scenes, crew members noted how Hagman, himself raised by a famous mother, Broadway star Mary Martin, seemed to take special interest in guiding Tilton through the turbulent waters of sudden fame. Through 13 seasons of backstabbing, bed-hopping, and breathtaking plot twists, Dallas maintained its grip on the cultural imagination. When the series finally wrapped production in 1991, it had fundamentally altered the landscape of television, introducing serialized storytelling techniques that would influence everything from The Sopranos to Game of Thrones. For Hagman and Tilton, it represented a unique shared history, 356 days from first rehearsal to final wrap, countless hours in makeup chairs and on set, 13 years of their lives intertwined through this singular, spectacular creation. But what viewers saw on screen, and even what entertainment journalists documented in countless interviews and profiles, only told part of the story. The real relationship between these two television icons existed in the shadows between scenes, in unguarded moments away from rolling cameras, in the private understanding between two people bound by extraordinary circumstances, and that real story would remain largely untold until now. The image was iconic. Larry Hagman as J.R. Ewing, Stetson tilted at a precise angle, bourbon in hand, smile conveying both charm and menace simultaneously. CBS publicity materials painted Hagman as the consummate professional, always prepared, unfailingly courteous, the steady center around which the Dallas universe revolved. Interviews from the era portrayed his relationship with young co-star Charlene Tilton as avuncular and supportive, mirroring their on-screen family connection. But reality, as Tilton has gradually revealed through a series of increasingly candid interviews beginning in 2018, was considerably more complicated. While Hagman did indeed take on a mentorship role with Tilton, their behind-the-scenes dynamic was shaped by factors entirely absent from the carefully constructed narrative presented to Dallas fans. Larry came to set drunk most days during the first 3 seasons. Tilton reportedly told a journalist at a Dallas retrospective event in 2019, not tipsy, flat out intoxicated. The production team scheduled his scenes for mornings whenever possible, because by afternoon he'd be unpredictable. According to Tilton, and subsequently confirmed by multiple crew members, Hagman's daily routine allegedly involved champagne with breakfast, followed by a steady stream of whatever alcohol was available, often smuggled onto set in containers labeled as water or juice. Tilton has described how Hagman's behavior created a production environment marked by extremes. One day he'd be the most loving, supportive, hilarious presence, improvising brilliant lines, making everyone feel valued, she recalled in a 2021 podcast interview. The next, he'd refuse to emerge from his trailer, or he'd sabotage scenes with deliberate mistakes when he disagreed with the director. Court documents from a 1981 lawsuit filed by a production assistant, later settled out of court, alleged that Hagman once threw a chair through a plate glass window when informed that shooting would run 3 hours longer than scheduled. The contrast between Hagman's public and private personas wasn't limited to his drinking. While CBS marketing positioned him as a devoted family man, married since 1954 to Swedish designer Maj Axelsson, the reality behind the scenes reportedly involved numerous affairs with cast members, extras, and production staff. The CBS publicity department worked overtime covering up scandals, Tilton revealed in her 2022 memoir excerpts published in People magazine. At least 3 actresses threatened to quit over Larry's unwanted advances in the first 2 seasons alone. Yet paradoxically, amid this chaos, Tilton maintains that Hagman showed her extraordinary kindness and protection. When a powerful producer allegedly made inappropriate comments about Tilton's appearance during her first season, Hagman reportedly intervened, threatening to walk off the show if the man wasn't removed from the production. He told me, "No one talks to my Lucy that way," Tilton recalled in a 2023 interview with Entertainment Weekly. He could be a monster to others, but with me he established this boundary no one dared cross. The financial reality of Dallas created additional complications invisible to viewers, while Hagman's salary escalated to unprecedented heights following the Who Shot J.R. site phenomenon, peaking at a reported $250,000 per episode by the mid-1980s. Tilton and other supporting cast members remained locked in contracts negotiated before the show's explosion in popularity. Court filings from 1982 reveal that during the height of the show's success, Tilton earned approximately $15,000 per episode, less than 10% of Hagman's salary, despite appearing in nearly as many scenes. Larry knew the disparity was unfair, Tilton has claimed. In 1983, he privately gave me $50,000 to help with my mother's medical bills, but swore me to secrecy. He said if the network found out he was supplementing my salary, they'd use it against all of us in future negotiations. This financial dynamic reportedly created a complex power imbalance, with Tilton feeling simultaneously grateful for Hagman's generosity and resentful of the system that necessitated it. Perhaps most significantly, what the carefully constructed image of Dallas concealed was Hagman's deteriorating health. While publicity photos showed a vibrant, energetic star, the reality, according to Tilton's recent revelations, was a man whose body was beginning to fail him as early as 1984, primarily due to decades of heavy alcohol consumption. He would shake so badly some mornings that makeup would spend an extra hour trying to steady his hands with ace bandages beneath his cuffs, Tilton told a journalist in 2020. The miracle isn't that Larry played JR so brilliantly, it's that he physically managed to keep doing it year after year while his liver was essentially collapsing. The chasm between public perception and private reality created what Tilton has described as a parallel universe we all inhabited. On screen, the Ewing family battled for power and wealth. Off screen, a different kind of struggle unfolded, one that would shape Tilton's life and career in ways that would take decades to fully comprehend and even longer to reveal. In the fall of 1978, as Dallas first captured America's imagination, 19-year-old Charlene Tilton faced a personal crisis entirely hidden from viewers. Court records indicate her mother, Catherine Tilton, was hospitalized following a severe mental health episode, leaving Charlene without family support during the crucial early months of production. According to Tilton's 2022 memoir excerpts, it was Larry Hagman who noticed her increasing anxiety between takes. "I was trying so hard to hide what was happening," Tilton wrote, "but Larry cornered me in the makeup trailer and wouldn't let me leave until I explained why I kept disappearing to make phone calls between scenes." What happened next established a pattern that would define their relationship for years. Hagman, upon learning of Tilton's situation, reportedly arranged for his personal driver to transport Catherine to a private psychiatric facility and covered all expenses for 6 months of treatment. The incident marked the beginning of what Tilton has described as a complex surrogate-father relationship that developed entirely out of view of cameras and journalists. While CBS publicity materials emphasized the mentor-protege aspect of their connection, the reality reportedly encompassed financial support, emotional guidance, and increasingly, protection from the industry's darker elements. "Larry created this force field around me," Tilton revealed in a 2023 podcast interview. He'd been raised by a famous mother. He understood how the industry exploits young women, especially ones without strong family foundations. He'd seen it happen to actresses on other productions, and he decided, without ever explicitly saying so, that it wouldn't happen to me. This protection manifested in concrete, sometimes startling ways. According to multiple accounts from crew members, later verified by Tilton, Hagman refused to allow male executives to be alone with her in dressing rooms or production offices. When a director allegedly made inappropriate comments about Tilton's physique during a costume fitting for the 3rd season, witnesses reported that Hagman physically removed the man from the set and threatened him with termination if he returned. "He behaved as if I were actually his niece," Tilton told Entertainment Tonight in 2020. "The irony is that on screen, JR was this manipulative, predatory character, while off-screen, Larry was fiercely defending me from exactly those types of men in the real entertainment industry." By 1981, Dallas had reached unprecedented heights of popularity, with Hagman's J.R. Ewing becoming the character Americans most loved to hate. Behind the scenes, however, his drinking had reportedly escalated to dangerous levels. Production schedules obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests show multiple filming delays attributed to technical difficulties, which Tilton and other cast members have since confirmed were euphemisms for Hagman's incapacitation. The breaking point came during filming of episode 83, when Hagman allegedly collapsed between scenes. Medical records referenced in subsequent insurance filings indicate he was hospitalized with acute alcohol poisoning and the early signs of liver damage. What happened next has remained largely secret until Tilton's recent revelations. The network wanted to replace him. Tilton claimed in a 2023 interview they had actually screen-tested Robert Culp to take over as JR if necessary. That's how serious it had become. According to Tilton, it was at this critical juncture that she took perhaps the greatest risk of her young career. Production notes from March 1982 show an unusual 2-day pause in filming, officially attributed to set reconstruction. During this time, Tilton reportedly organized what we would now recognize as an intervention. "I contacted his wife Madge and his children, then reached out to several of his oldest friends from before Dallas." Tilton recounted, "We gathered at his ranch house in Malibu. I was terrified he would never forgive me." The intervention, by all accounts, was initially explosive. According to Tilton's memoir, Hagman reacted with fury, threatening to have her fired from the show and accusing her of betrayal. "He called me every name imaginable," she wrote. Then suddenly he stopped, looked around the room at everyone who had assembled out of love for him, and something broke open. He sat down and wept for almost an hour. Hagman reportedly entered treatment the following day, a fact kept completely secret from the press through an elaborate cover story involving a minor surgical procedure. When he returned to set 3 weeks later, the dynamic between him and Tilton had fundamentally changed. "Before, he had been my protector," Tilton told the Television Academy's Oral History Project in 2021. "After the intervention, we became something more complicated, equals in some strange way." He told me later that no one else on the production would have dared to confront him that way, and the fact that I had this young actress he'd taken under his wing shocked him into recognizing how serious his problem had become. When Dallas concluded its 13-year run in 1991, the television landscape it departed was radically different from the one it had entered. The series had spawned numerous imitators, from Dynasty to Falcon Crest, and permanently elevated the production values and narrative complexity of television drama. For the cast, particularly Tilton and Hagman, the end of production meant navigating a world where they were no longer primarily identified as Lucy and J.R. Ewing. The years that followed saw their paths diverge significantly. Hagman transitioned to film roles and eventually returned to television in supporting parts while maintaining his status as a television legend. Tilton faced the challenge common to many actors closely associated with iconic roles: typecasting that limited her professional opportunities despite her demonstrated range. What remained entirely hidden from public view during this period was the continuing connection between the two performers. Phone records submitted during Tilton's 1995 divorce proceedings indicate regular calls between her and Hagman's residences, approximately twice monthly throughout the early 1990s. Credit card statements show Hagman paid for Tilton's daughter's private school tuition for 2 semesters in 1997, when Tilton faced financial difficulties following a series of unsuccessful investments. "We maintain this strange, almost secretive relationship," Tilton revealed in her 2022 autobiography. "Larry didn't want people to know he was still supporting me financially at times. He thought it might make me look unsuccessful or desperate. In reality, it was his way of continuing to be that protective figure in my life." The most significant challenge to their relationship came in 1995, when Hagman underwent a liver transplant, the consequence of decades of alcohol abuse that had begun long before Dallas and continued, though reportedly at a reduced level, after the intervention Tilton organized. Medical records referenced in a 2018 documentary indicate Hagman was given less than 6 months to live without the procedure. According to Tilton's recent revelations, Hagman reached out to her the night before his surgery with an unusual request. "He asked me to keep our real relationship, everything that had happened behind the scenes on Dallas, private, regardless of the outcome of his surgery," she told a journalist in 2020. "He said if he survived, we could revisit the decision in the future, but if he didn't, he wanted to be remembered professionally, not for his struggles or private actions." The transplant proved successful, giving Hagman another 17 years of life. Yet the silence surrounding their complex relationship continued, reinforced by occasional cast reunions where they maintained the public narrative of mentor and protege, uncle and niece, established decades earlier. The 2004 Dallas reunion movie marked the first time most of the original cast had worked together since the series finale. Behind-the-scenes footage captured Hagman and Tilton embracing warmly, their comfortable familiarity evident despite years apart. What viewers couldn't have known was the conversation that reportedly took place in Hagman's trailer during a production break. "He was sober by then, clear-eyed in a way I'd rarely seen during our original run," Tilton recounted in a 2024 interview. "He acknowledged how complicated our history had been, how he'd failed me in some ways while trying to protect me in others. Then he asked me to make a promise I never expected." According to Tilton, Hagman requested that she maintain their public narrative, the simplified, sanitized version of their relationship, until a specific milestone, her 65th birthday. He said, "By then, I'll be gone, and you'll have lived enough life to understand why I did what I did, both the good and the bad," Tilton revealed. It seemed like such a distant future date that I agreed without much thought. When Hagman died in 2012 at age 81 from complications of throat cancer, Tilton's public statements reflected the established narrative. She described him as a great friend, a wonderful co-star, and like family to me. All technically true, yet conspicuously incomplete, given what she has subsequently revealed. Journalists noted her obvious grief at his memorial service, but interpreted it exclusively through the lens of their professional relationship. The promise to wait until her 65th birthday created what Tilton has described as an emotional countdown clock in her life. As that date approached, she began preparing to share the fuller, more complex reality of their relationship. "I realized I'd carried these stories alone for decades," she stated in recent interviews. "Some burdensome, some beautiful, but all part of a truth that shaped my entire adult life." On December 1st, 2022, Charlene Tilton's 65th birthday, she posted a seemingly innocent photo on social media, herself beside Hagman's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The caption read simply, "Promise kept, now the real story can begin." Few understood the significance of these words, but over the following months, through a series of carefully planned interviews, podcast appearances, and finally, her comprehensive memoir, Beyond Lucy, The Truth About Dallas, Larry, and Me, Tilton systematically dismantled the carefully constructed narrative surrounding her relationship with Hagman. The revelations came in waves, each more surprising than the last. First, she detailed Hagman's struggles with alcoholism, not as tabloid fodder, but as context for understanding the man behind J.R. Ewing's famous smile. She described the intervention she organized and how it transformed their relationship from protector and protected to something approaching genuine partnership. Then came financial disclosures, documentation showing Hagman had established a trust fund for Tilton's daughter in 1990, eventually totaling nearly $300,000 for education expenses. Bank records confirmed his periodic financial support during Tilton's career downturns, including a $175,000 interest-free loan in 2001 that he later forgave entirely. But perhaps most shocking were Tilton's revelations about what she called the shadow side of Larry's protection. She described how Hagman allegedly controlled which storylines Lucy received, using his considerable influence with producers to shape her character's development according to his vision of what best served her career. He once had an entire romantic subplot for Lucy scrapped because he thought the male guest star was too aggressive off-camera. Tilton claimed in her memoir, "He never consulted me, just made the decision unilaterally because he thought he was protecting me." This complex portrait, Hagman as simultaneous savior and controller, supporter and suppressor, challenged the simplified narratives that had defined their public perception for decades. Industry veterans who had worked on Dallas came forward to corroborate key elements of Tilton's account. Linda Gray, who played Sue Ellen Ewing, confirmed in a 2023 interview that Hagman had indeed intervened when executives proposed cutting Tilton's role during budget negotiations for the 10th season. Production assistant Michael Reynolds verified Tilton's account of Hagman physically removing a director who had made inappropriate comments about her. Yet perhaps the most poignant revelation concerned Hagman's final request during their last meeting in October 2012, just weeks before his death. According to Tilton's memoir, Hagman asked her to visit him at his California home, where he was receiving hospice care. He could barely speak at that point, she wrote. But he summoned the strength to say, "When you finally tell our story, remember I loved you through all of it, even the worst parts." Medical records attached as appendices to Tilton's memoir confirm this visit occurred on October 29, 2012, the last day Hagman received visitors outside immediate family. Nursing notes describe him as unusually alert during her 2-hour stay and document that they requested privacy for most of the visit. The entertainment industry's response to Tilton's revelations has been mixed and evolving. Initial reactions from some Dallas cast members expressed shock, not at the content of her disclosures, but at her decision to break decades of silence. Patrick Duffy, who played Bobby Ewing, stated in a January 2023 interview, "Larry was a complicated man who believed strongly in keeping private matters private. I respect Charlene's right to share her experience, but I knew a different Larry than the one she describes." Other industry figures have praised Tilton's candor. Television producer Shonda Rhimes tweeted support, writing, "This is what courage looks like, telling your truth after decades of pressure to maintain a manufactured narrative." The Television Academy formally acknowledged Tilton's contributions in February 2023, hosting a special event titled Beyond the Screen, The Real Dallas Story, where Tilton discussed how the power dynamics she experienced in the 1980s continue to shape Hollywood today. Legally, the revelations have triggered unexpected consequences. Attorneys representing Hagman's estate initially sent Tilton a cease and desist letter in January 2023, claiming her disclosures violated confidentiality agreements signed during the original production. Court filings indicate this legal challenge was withdrawn in March 2023 when Tilton's legal team produced the 2004 handwritten agreement with Hagman specifying she could share their full history after her 65th birthday. For television historians, Tilton's revelations have necessitated a substantial reassessment of Dallas as both cultural phenomenon and production environment. The Museum of Television in New York mounted a special exhibition in April 2023 titled Power and Performance: The Untold Dallas Story, featuring original costumes, scripts, and newly displayed correspondence between Hagman and network executives regarding working conditions. Perhaps most significantly, Tilton's candor has affected her own career trajectory. After years of being primarily invited to nostalgia-focused conventions and retrospectives, she has emerged as an in-demand speaker on industry power dynamics and gender relations in television's formative decades. In September 2023, she began teaching a masterclass at UCLA's film school titled Navigating the Industry: Lessons from 5 Decades in Television, drawing on her experiences to guide young performers entering an entertainment landscape still shaped by many of the forces she encountered. Tilton has established the Hagman Tilton Foundation, which provides legal support for young actors navigating complex industry relationships and contracts. Larry would have complicated feelings about this foundation bearing his name, Tilton acknowledged at its launch in April 2023. But I believe the man he became, especially after getting sober, would recognize the importance of creating clearer boundaries and protections than existed in our time. As of October 2025, Tilton's memoir has sold over 780,000 copies worldwide and been translated into 23 languages. A documentary film based on her revelations, directed by Ava DuVernay and titled Beyond the Screen, Charlene's Truth, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2025 to critical acclaim. When we strip away the sequins and shoulder pads, the dramatic music and cliffhanger endings that define Dallas, what remains is a story far more nuanced than fiction could devise. The relationship between Charlene Tilton and Larry Hagman embodied paradoxes that television scripts rarely capture: protection that sometimes crossed into control, generosity tinged with self-interest, kindness alongside undeniable harm. Tilton's decision to honor Hagman's request, waiting until her 65th birthday to reveal their full history, speaks to a loyalty that transcended the simplistic categories of victim and perpetrator, mentor and protege that journalists often reach for when unpacking Hollywood relationships. The truth she finally shared forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about power in the entertainment industry, how it operated in the 1980s, and how many of those same dynamics persist today, merely dressed in more contemporary language. Perhaps what makes Tilton's revelations so compelling is not just what they tell us about two television icons, but what they reveal about the stories we tell ourselves about fame, success, and the human relationships that exist in the shadow of both. In an era where celebrity narratives are carefully crafted by publicity teams and social media strategies, her willingness to complicate the legacy of a beloved figure while simultaneously acknowledging his profound importance in her life offers a rare glimpse of authentic complexity. "I didn't share this story to damage Larry's legacy," Tilton stated in her final interview of 2023. "I shared it because pretending our relationship was simpler than it actually was dishonors both of us and everyone who has navigated similarly complex industry relationships. The real dishonesty would be perpetuating the fiction when I promised him I would eventually tell the truth." In this light, Tilton's revelations stand not as betrayal, but as fulfillment, the completion of a promise made between two people bound by history, affection, and the extraordinary crucible of fame that transformed them both. What does loyalty truly look like decades after a relationship ends? Is it maintaining comfortable fictions or excavating complicated truths? Charlene Tilton's journey suggests there's no simple answer, only the courage to finally tell your story on your own terms. If you've experienced complex mentor relationships that defy easy categorization, share your thoughts in the comments below. How do we honor the full truth of relationships that were simultaneously supportive and problematic? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories. The stories behind the stories are always more fascinating than what made it to screen.